Hello, friends. We are in a troubling time when it comes to misinformation. Here at Forbidden Knowledge News, I've always taken an unbiased, open-minded, and responsible approach to presenting my own theories, and the views of our guests do not reflect that of my own. This show is for entertainment purposes only, and any information presented during this show is a live-action role-play scenario. Conspiracies are definitely fun to discuss in a responsible way. My suggestion to everyone that has an audience and presents theories and possibilities should present them as such, and in no way present unsubstantiated information as truth. All that being said, enjoy this episode. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Adam Butler. First, a couple of announcements. Are you looking to start your microdosing journey? Check out Brainsupreme. Brainsupreme contains the highest quality ingredients to start your microdosing journey right now. When you use code FKN15 at checkout, you get 15% off your order. Learn more, visit their website, brainsupreme.co. Visit brainsupreme.co/discount/FKN15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. The link is right in the description. Also, watch the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana. That's on Tubi, Roku channel, and multiple streaming platforms. Also, get a Rokfin premium membership. You'll get access to all our premium content and all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin. Finally, always be sure to download our podcast episodes directly through Spreaker. We have a link for you right in the description. Today I want to welcome Adam Butler. He is a psychedelic philosopher and passionate DMT psychonaut focusing on mental health, neuroplasticity, self-exploration, and the extreme limits of human potential and ability. Adam, welcome. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to this. We're going to once again explore the profound benefits many have experienced with plant medicines, psychedelics. Today we're going to focus on DMT. And I'll start out with the disclaimer that we are in no way recommending that anyone try any of these entheogenic or psychedelic substances. This is our sharing of our success and experiences, but if you feel a calling, please take the necessary precautions, preparation, and approach the experience with intention, reverence, and respect. That being said, I myself have only tried DMT a couple of times, both with very similar effects, enjoyable experiences. For me, my psychedelic journey was with psilocybin. I have since, for the most part, come to the end of my consciousness exploration journey. Not saying that I won't ever go back for a visit, but I got the most important message and hung up the phone for now. I have many, many close friends and colleagues that have very effectively utilized DMT for healing and consciousness exploration. Some of them even make their own. And I'm very interested in learning about your insights and experiences with this. Before we do, this is your first time on. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what brought you down this path.
That's a loaded question. And I try to be brief with that part of my story. And not that I'm not willing to talk about any subject, but I think at 44 years old, or people around my age, everybody's had a life full of bullshit, a life full of trauma, letdowns. So I don't want to sound like, my story is unique. But really, I got introduced to psychedelics probably about 3.5 years ago when everything in my life just crumbled and, realized that it was all due to my making. But I started with getting into shrooms, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gram doses. I was going pretty deep and was getting really therapeutic value. And I was really understanding the key areas of my inner psyche that I needed to work with. Um, but I didn't get that profound breakthrough or shake up that I know that I needed at that place. And I was in a really, really bad place. I was, honestly suicidal and was contemplating ending my life. So I knew that I needed to have a major foundational shift in pretty much all of my perspectives. Um, but I knew I had to have respect and reverence, and I appreciate how started the show because you do need to have the right intention. You do need to have respect and reverence. You do need to understand why you're doing it. And uh, after exploring shrooms for several months, I felt as though I was ready to explore DMT, and I can honestly say it helped save my life. And after kind of exploring and getting that reset, I took about a year and a half off and just traveled the country. I quit my job. I basically got kicked out of where I was living because I threatened to kill a guy. That was all part of the story. We can get into that too. Um, and just took the time to really find out who I was and how I fit into this world. And with that experience, I felt as though I wanted to write the book, so Butler's DMT Field Guide, which is really just a short, brief kind of introduction to DMT, a brief history. It does have recipes in it, so you mentioned some of your friends make it. It's super easy to make, so I go over, how to do that. And, ideally, the book is going to spark more questions and introduce more, I don't want to say misfits, but, people that are looking for other stories other than from the research academia, from, kind of the weirdos that look like me and listen to your show. And like even one of your last guests, Will Batty, I was sitting there nodding my head to pretty much everything he said, where it's like you come out of these experiences, whether it be through meditation, connection to God, knowing of yourself, all of these experiences with the desire to share that knowledge to help others. So, now that here
Right
we are.
on. Great introduction. Maybe we could start with your understanding of the differences between DMT and other psychedelics, the effects it's had in your life, and some of the experiences you've had.
So, I think one of the biggest differences with DMT and other psychedelics, and not that I'm some expert in everything, but I am trying to see that the similarities between all of these different ways of getting to different dimensions. Um, but the fact that DMT, excuse me, is endogenous, meaning that it's produced naturally in your own body, I think that's what really excited me and was really had my curiosity. And I think that's what a lot of the early researchers, including like Rick Strassman, um, who wrote that book, The Spirit Molecule, which I think anybody getting into it would probably be one of the best books to start with. But him and all these, subsequent researchers, the fact that it's natural in our own body, the fact that it's found in thousands and thousands of plants, my understanding that it's found in every mammal, that it's ubiquitous throughout the world, and it can be induced naturally. It can be induced through all different types of states, and I just found that the ability for your body to metabolize it so quickly, so easily, with no hangover effect, with not having to take an entire day
Yeah.
off and then an entire day to recover and integrate. Um, I really like the aspect of it that I wasn't putting some synthetic chemical into my body. Um, I mentioned I started with shrooms, natural and organic, but it still was it is a poisoning sensation. You can feel the shrooms
Mm.
hitting you. You can feel like, oh fuck, I've got this poison going through my blood. And you can feel how your state gets altered and warped. Where I think with DMT, as crazy as the sensations are, and as the fact that your senses go completely different, it's very natural. It's very innate. It's very like the veil's being lifted, not like you're being drugged or poisoned. Like your eyes are being opened and you're being shown, you know, more of reality, not less. And doesn't make the experience any easier. If anything, it's even more challenging to kind of navigate. But that aspect of it, I felt as though you could get quite a bit of therapy and integration in a short amount of time. And like I said, I honestly needed it. And now today I still use it as part of my kind of holistic routine. And and I do appreciate appreciate that. Once you get the message, you can hang up. In my particular case, with everything that I lost, so I have no family, no wife, no kids, no job, no like I lost everything because of how bad of a fuck up I was. So at this point, I'm kind of dedicating my life to further exploration of these altered states. I'm going to Monroe Institute in a week and a half to go through the Gateway program, to try to see how that corresponds to these altered DMT states. I'm trying to get into deep meditation, big into lucid dreaming. All of these ways of just getting beyond what most humans spend most of their waking time having to deal with, which is just life. And for right or for wrong, I guess I don't have to deal with life too much, so I just try to explore these different states.
Right on. Now, I want to get deeper into your understanding of what is happening with our consciousness, what we are communicating with at times. We'll get into that. First, you mentioned that you wanted to have that breakthrough experience. And this can be interpreted different for many people. And for me, what I associate with a breakthrough experience with DMT is when you're actually able to exit your body, in a sense, and have this completely astral based experience where you're no longer connected to your physical self. Were you able to achieve those states?
Yes, and I would say that that's how kind of I would describe it as well, because it's always gonna be like this fun sights and sounds, like you're in this crazy IMAX theater. I don't think that's not a breakthrough. That's having a cool psychedelic experience. Um, and I mentioned my first day experiencing DMT, I did have that breakthrough, but it wasn't until after, and I mentioned in the book about how I took about 50 hits that first day. And a lot of people are like, no fucking way. Like, there's no way that's possible. Well, it was spaced out over about an hour and a half, and I did about 7, 8 sessions, and each session was about 6, 7, 8 hits. So, that first session, as soon as I hit it, and I think this is important, was that instantly all of your senses did feel highly altered. But like I said, it felt very natural, very normal. It felt like this sensation in the back of my nasal cavity that was really familiar. I wasn't scared at all. I wasn't like, oh shit, I'm plunging into this void of darkness. It was more like I'm really being comfortable or being shown what my body can really do. But that first session, so I took maybe 3 hits and kind of get familiar with what the taste and the feel. Kind of sat back, enjoyed it, but didn't really, certainly didn't have any interactions with entities, didn't get any profound information download or anything like that. So then I took a couple minutes to kind of relax, and then I pushed it again a little bit further. Pretty much just more kind of sights and sounds. Pushed it again another 3 or 4 times. So you're going deeper into this weird space where now you're not only so much sitting there and enjoying the show, but you're actually kind of like in the show, and you're deeper in these realms. But I wasn't getting any information. I wasn't getting any conveyance of knowledge, or I certainly wasn't getting anything to help with my breakthrough. I was just, really just having really cool trips. But it was that last session that was completely different, and each time I was going in with a plead and an ask and a genuine intention. But that last one, I again, I was in a really really bad spot, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, if I don't get some sort of help or answer, like kind of like this is your time. Like, if not, then I'll see you next time around type deal. And so I took, and the thing with DMT I think is important is 1 hit is way different than 2 hits, which is way different than 3 hits, which is way different than 4 hits. And you have that Terrence McKenna like quote where he's saying about, if you can just take that one big, like, one more massive toke, like even when you think you're there, if you can just take another one or two, that's when you can really kind of pop into that higher level. But that last session, all of like the vibratory hum stopped, the sights and sounds stopped. It wasn't like this sensory overload like all the other experiences were. It was the exact opposite. It was this deafening silence where I felt as though my body was kind of being pulled in all directions and kind of like floating, not falling, but completely disconnected from these hypersensational feelings that I had just experienced for the last, hour and a half. And in that final experience, I felt as though I really got the answers that I needed. And without getting into all details, I think the best way for me to describe it was, I do want to mention briefly, and I do go over this in my book, how I really was raised with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had absolutely every advantage growing up. I had amazing parents, awesome grandparents. I got gifted a shit ton of money. I went to 7, 8 years of college. I owned multiple businesses. I owned 15 houses. I was making a shit ton of money. And I don't say that in any braggadocious way at all. I say that because I had every advantage where this isn't like a woe is me, the world kicked me down and, I had to overcome the adversity that was put on my shoulders. Not at all. Like I said, I fucked up all of that. So I was always trying to connect, these past dots or these past events in my past with what's going to happen in the future. How can I be in this present state now and be all messed up, and trying to connect everything in my life. And it was just absolutely driving me nuts, where in that space it was kind of like, all right, Adam, you want to connect your 100 major dots? Well, boom, here they're connected. And then that shattered. And then it was like, you want to connect your major 1,000 dots, and then 1,000,000, and then 1,000,000,000. And the kind of concept was, you stupid human. It's not a matter of connecting all of these dots in your life. It's a matter of enjoying the space between the dots. It's a matter of being here, right now. And I came out of that experience not with all my problems solved. If anything, a spotlight now shone on all my problems. But I realized that I didn't need to waste all of my internal energy dealing with shit in the past or the future. That I could focus on it right here and now. And it sounds like such a basic thing, but that was really what started my ability to have a life full of just gratitude and joy and contentment. And that's what's a very common story when I hear you, when I hear a lot of your guests, and we have a lot of mutual friends. It's this very authentic and raw contentment and joy and happiness. And that doesn't mean a life that doesn't have bullshit. Just the opposite. Like I said, we see our bullshit even further. But it's a happiness to enjoy the experience and not look for an outcome. And then, so that was really what was like, all right, Adam, now you can figure out what you need to do. And then it's really just been a long journey of doing the needed work. And that's going to be different for everybody. But I needed that shake up. I needed that completely, that mental reset. Do you need psychedelics to have that? No, and that's part of the disclaimer too, is there are other ways of getting that, but I personally needed that. And then now, since having that, my entire life is completely changed, and it's just, I'm excited to be alive, which is, not enough people can say.
Yeah, I owe everything of where I am now, at least a large portion of it, to my exploration with psychedelics. Like you said, there's plenty of ways to achieve these understandings without it. But for me, I won't say it was necessary, but it put me on a fast track to understanding, to growing spiritually, healing myself, and really bringing my life to a much better place than it was. Let's talk about your understanding of what is happening when we are under the influence of these substances. Even in our modern age, there's very limited understanding of what is going on with our brain. What are we really experiencing scientifically? From my spiritual understanding, there's a door opening, and we have at least a portion of our consciousness that is interacting with these different realms that are outside of this material existence. And within these layers of different astral realms, I believe that there are multiple layers to this. There are also intelligences and information fields that we can access, but still, it's a very limited understanding of what is really occurring during these experiences, and I'd love to get your understanding of what's going on.
So I think you're describing pretty much not my philosophy. So like you mentioned like opening a door. So, the Doors of Perception by Huxley back in the day. There's actually a take on that, and there's a gentleman you may be interested in interviewing, Anthony Peake. He's
I've
wrote
been
a
trying to
bunch
get
of books on
Anthony on
near-death
for a long
experience.
time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm good
All
friends
right.
with him. Well, I should say I'm good friends with him, like he's my boy. But I can definitely reach out because he's connected. A lot of his research connects
Mhm.
DMT. Somehow, some way, he goes back to the information that's available in these altered states, and DMT does come back to it quite a bit. But he wrote a good book, opening the doors of perception, I believe. So it's a ode to
Mhm.
Huxley. And it's the concept that your brain really is a reducing valve, and in a necessary reducing valve of information. That we're not some, and I do want to get into, if we could, a lot of people shit on like the human meat suit and trying to ascend the 3D to the 5D and trying to get out of this and stay in the astral realm. I don't believe that at all. I think there's so much beauty and profoundness and information that is here in the 3D and that we need to
Mhm.
stay here. But that being said, I do feel as though our very dull five human senses are just that. They're the basic five senses to keep us alive in this time and space limited dimension. But there's so much more out there, and that's not some far out concept. Think just in it's you hear this all the time about the idea of tuning an antenna to pick up AM stations, FM stations, radio waves, microwaves, and that we really are picking up such a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that there's so much more out there, and that it's really just a matter of the tools you're using to collect that information, and the antenna strength or what vibrational wavelength it's tuned into. And I think that when we get into these altered states, whether it be lucid dreaming, whether it be because of a migraine headache aura, whether it be, because I just blasted off into DMT, if you're doing, holotropic breathing, you're getting into these different abilities of heightening your antenna, where you're able to pick up on more refined and greater vibrations of energy. And I think and I don't think that that's disputed. I think what I hope now is, I think coming more to the forefront is the power of the information that's being taken from these realms. So what it's saving lives. Like you just said, very profound statements that where you are at today is heavily due to the information you gathered from your use of shrooms. Like that's not a small statement to make. I started saying DMT saved my life. Again, big fucking statement to be making. Like so the power of these molecules to help people overcome trauma, and there's a whole discussion of the therapeutic value and how it can help deal with negative aspects. But then there's the whole flip side of the coin about the expanded version. Where else can it go to enrich and enhance our lives, and to what abilities can it enhance? And not like woo-woo magic shit, like, how do you transport and astral project and bilocate, and that's all fun and cool, and I do think that can actually happen, and I've experienced a lot of that weird shit myself. But I think it's more to the main theme of what you and your guests keep coming back to, which is, well, what does that mean in the day-to-day life? That means more connection to source. That means you are some facet of God, whatever the hell that means. And I've had a long range of change of spirituality and religious views. But once you realize that, that's the real power that you take from these realms. Not the dancing with mantis entities or the crazy talk that you can say, and again, experience kind of all that weird shit. It's the knowing that there's something greater than, and that it's not to be disputed. Like it's not. There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities to say that they're not
Mhm.
there.
Let's talk a little bit more about the intention before having any type of these experiences. Many people will go into psychedelics with little spiritual knowledge or understanding, little reverence, and they'll end up having very terrifying or negative experiences. Now, even when I go in with intention and reverence, I can still have terrifying experiences, but I understand the nature of why it's being presented that way. It's because I have to face something, facing your demons, basically. there's experiences where no matter how much preparation you do beforehand, you can't prepare at times for what this substance is going to pull out of your deepest subconscious and show you. No matter what your intention going in is, if the medicine has other plans for you, if it thinks you need to work on something else, it will bring that up. It's very profound how these substances can sift through your subconscious and find these traumas and mental defects basically that need to be addressed, and they will show them to you in very interesting ways, and many times they will be presented as a very dark, terrifying, demonic entity or situation that you have to face, because if you don't face it head on, it's going to make the experience even worse. But in my experience, after facing these terrifying demons and traumas that would come up that are associated with it, the experience would be extremely rewarding. I found that in the beginning, most of the experiences were me being presented with these situations where I had to face major traumas and terrifying demons and these seeming entities that would be attacking me. But once I would face them and understand what the message was about, it would transmute the entities into something beautiful.
Yeah, and like you said, you can never really prepare for that. But if you have that understanding that you just outlined, it allows you to the perspective to at least understand that you're going to be shown some things, and you need to show it. And I think that's actually one of the most beautiful aspects of psychedelics, is it does find that subjective crack in your psyche that only you know is there. And a lot of times people run from that, and it's so easy to fool yourself, to lie to your spouse, to lie to your therapist, to lie to your friends, where you can't lie to yourself while looking in the mirror on 5 grams of shrooms, or going deep with the intent on DMT or an ayahuasca session and think you're going to bullshit yourself. And that, whether that's the actual consciousness of the plant working, or it's just the way your own personal brain has to process it, that in itself is the real value, because you're not going to some doctor who sees 50 patients a day and just has a checklist of things to say and prescribes one of 10 things, and yeah, here you go. And it's like that's everybody has such a unique story, and a unique set of scars and warts and cracks that need filling, that I think it's hard for an individual outside of yourself to really help you the way I know I needed help. Like, I needed to hear that I was a narcissistic, belligerent asshole, alcoholic, overweight. Like, I mean, if anybody else would have said those things to me, I would not have taken them well, and I would have been defensive and been like, fuck you, look at all the things that I've done. So, and when people say bad trip, yeah, you can have some things that are uncomfortable and painful to hear, but I've personally never had anything like you would attribute to like a horror movie, like Halloween type thing, where you're getting chased by monsters or chased by demons, or you're running and you can't escape, or it's more just, no, you need to confront this, and you can't, you have to go through it. You can't, like, this is an area that is going to keep affecting you unless you deal with it. Now, the beautiful part of that, and it sounds like you've gotten there, and I think most people that have had the benefits of these psychedelics have gotten there too, where is you not then turn these monsters and demons and negatives into part of your story, and part of a beautiful part of your story, where I'm not somebody that believes like you dissolve your ego and now you're just some enlightened being and all you're thinking is positive stuff. Like, that's not how the world works. Everything does have its polarity, everything does have its ups and downs and flow, and everything is in movement. And I know that those darker aspects of my psyche and my past are there to teach me from the past, but also to continue teaching me. But I let those voices have their say. I let them speak, but I don't let them control the narrative. And I think that's the important, or one of the important things that psychedelics gave me the power of over my own mind and body, to not shut up the crazy voices in our head, because I think we all have multiple crazy voices in our head. It's just to let them say what they need to say, because a lot of times there's a valid point there, but you can't let it take it to the extreme. And it's the ability to put the trauma, the loss, the bullshit in the right area in your brain, not to just have it keep rattling around and drive you nuts, but to find a place to leave it and put it where it can be used for
Yeah.
good.
And you mentioned that you never really had these experiences where you're being chased by terrifying entities or creatures. Well, I actually have had some of these experiences, and I know that, it's different for everyone. And this is another reason why I would never recommend any type of psychedelic as like a party drug or some recreational thing, because I believe that what we're tapping into can have negative intelligences that are interested in trickery or attaching themselves to you. And I've experienced this a few times. Luckily, when I did experience this, I had already been prepared through multiple other experiences by what I understand is my higher self, how to deal with these trickster type of entities that can try and lead you in certain directions, attach themselves to you, cause depression. I've had experiences, and I've told this story many times. I'm not really going to get into the whole thing, where I was in a bad relationship with a woman that I couldn't see her dark side. I was kind of blinded to everything, and we did a mushroom experience together. And she turned into a 7-foot tall reptilian and chased me around my house. That didn't actually happen, but that's what I perceived. And it was a very terrifying but profound experience that later I understood, because the days and weeks after that, she started showing her true self, a very dark, cold person, very materialistic, not someone that I would want to be with. And it was so profound that the mushrooms showed me that in a very terrifying way. But I think that these experiences can be dangerous in that sense if you don't have the understanding of the true message of what it's trying to show you. It's not that my ex-girlfriend turned into an actual reptilian. It was trying to show me an energy about her that I didn't really understand, which is, again, these things have more power than I think we could ever understand, at least in our modern age.
Yeah, I think you have to be important to what senses you unlock. Yeah, are you familiar with that old movie They
Yeah.
Live?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's kind of like something like that where, to your point, once you put on those glasses or once you increase your antenna, once you're open to like, all right, now I can get this whole range of frequency information. Yeah, I'm not naive or humbled, or I'm humble enough to know that I don't necessarily have control 100% when I get into that realm. And I've certainly, like, my life has gotten way weirder since all of this shit has happened. And I do feel like I've opened up the ability to tap into these other realms, or that things not necessarily like attach or come back, but my device. If I'm looking at my brain and my body as a receiving device, I've been refining it and honing it and adding. I added AM, now I added FM, now I added satellite. And you can kind of just keep going up that range of higher
It connects
frequencies.
these
But
neural pathways that may not have been
but
previously active.
to your point though, you'll be able to see shit that you didn't necessarily see. And I think that's important point to make, where a lot of these experiences, or volunteers that go through these DMT programs and stuff, where they're saying that their experience is more real than real, and that they're coming out with these profound experiences. And I really think it's because, if you have your normal five senses, and say whatever, you go through some 7-minute experience and you come out with 100 data points. If you go through a 7-minute experience on DMT, you're getting 1 million data points. You're having so much more things come in. So like your interaction with your ex, like, yeah, so not only if she's sitting in front of you, you can see her, you can smell her, you can touch her, but now with these extra senses, you can see whatever, like her energy, her vibe, her true character, her aura. I mean, whatever type of words you want to put onto it, but it's conveyance of information. So like, you may not know how to smell or know that like something is good to eat or not, but that like that rancid smell, that it's probably not healthy. Or if you see, there are just some like archetypal triggers or designs in our head that say, yeah, like this is something you want to step away from. And I lean, and that's kind of why I like speaking with people like you, and hearing more about other people's experiences, because I think we need to lean more into what information we're gaining from that. Like Like that's probably something that you couldn't ignore that. Now, if your buddy was like, "Hey, you know what? That girl, I don't think she's the right for you, and can't you see how she's doing this, this, this?" You would have probably told him to go screw. Where if you see her turned into what, like you said, a 7 foot, like somebody coming at you, that information's gonna stick because that information is powerful and you need to hear it. So it's in any altered state or higher state of consciousness. I think there's a lot of information that can be gained there, and some maybe just enter for entertainment, and some for just you know wow. But one other point, if I
Yeah.
could, because I think it's important, when you do experience these higher states where you are getting these extra sensory things put in, so you can see and taste shapes and sounds, and you're having a mixing of all these different of your normal senses, but then added ones on. You can't unfeel that or unsense that sensation. So when you come out of that 7-8 minute trip, you know that your body is way greater than. Like I know that my body as a human instrument, that with my it's way more than just the organs working individually. It's when you have the brain and heart coherence, when you have the flow and control over the physiology of your body, when you can make yourself have goosebumps instantly, when you can induce lucid dreaming, like when you start adding all of these levels of ability to control your body. Again, it just makes the human experience that much more fun to enjoy because I know what my how high my body can vibrate. I know what my mind can experience. So I look for that in my waking state. I look for the magic when I look at a tree. I try to feel the energy vibration coming from a bee. When I hug somebody, I'm trying to pick up how they're vibrating. And that may sound weird to some people, but I know that's how my body works. So why forget about it when you're not tripping?
Yeah.
So it's you take it back, and I think that's where the love, the empathy, the connection stays with you because it's very easy to lean towards what feels good and what's right, and to avoid what doesn't.
Now, in recent years, I've noticed a major explosion in not only interest in psychedelics, but there seems to be a large market for it. Not only that, we see these ayahuasca retreats that are popping up everywhere. People, in a sense, taking advantage of the psychedelic movement. I have my own thoughts about some of these ayahuasca retreats. I'm sure it's beneficial for some people, but my thought is if you're surrounding yourself with strangers that have intense energy coming off of them, and then some quote unquote shaman who's going to guide you through an experience. My question is, how would they know what is best for you and your experience? And how does the energy of all these people having freakouts around you benefit you in any way? Now, I'm sure that it's different for different people's retreats and experiences, but I've heard a few horror stories about people trying to get quote unquote healing from these ayahuasca retreats, and all it does is just cause them more problems in the long run. For me, the most success I've had is sitting there alone in my room, in my backyard, in nature, or just with my wife, tones playing in the background, and having a beautiful meditative experience. If I'm in a situation where I have guests and it's a recreational thing, we might drink some tea, that's a different type of thing. But if I'm trying to do inner work, it's supposed to be my inner work, and I don't see how being surrounded with others is going to really help you do that beneficial self-exploration. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
So I've personally never done any retreats, so I can't speak on my personal experience. I've kind of got opened up maybe a few weeks ago when I did an interview with somebody who actually holds retreats. But my initial concern would be that too. The last place I would ever want to trip balls on ayahuasca is in the jungle getting bitten by mosquitoes where I don't have a bathroom to go shit in, that I'm worrying about some other lady puking on me, or worrying about the laws, or am I going to get robbed, or how am I going to leave? Like I feel like me personally, my mind would just be going on so many different rabbit holes that I would not want
Yeah.
to do that. For a bunch of different reasons, including cost prohibitive. A lot of people don't have multiple
Right.
thousands of dollars and have a visa and to do all those things. So I think there are a lot of restrictions to it. I've personally had the best experiences by myself in a dark room with my eyes closed, with my ears, like cupped over, and so I agree with that. But I also, and it sounds like you, have access through either yourself or your social circle where it's pretty easy to come across shrooms. It's pretty
Oh yeah,
easy.
I
You know,
grow them
I write in
myself.
my book how easy it is. Yeah, so it's like it would be like, yeah, of course we'll make tea, we'll give it to our buddies, we can go wherever. Um, no, I did an interview a few weeks ago, like I said, that a woman that holds psilocybin retreats in Colorado, I believe. So she's a mother of six whose life was drastically changed and bettered by the use of psychedelics. She's really trying to produce a safe space for people. My understanding is she gives them the space in their own room to kind of do their own thing and they can do their own
See, that's
exploration.
great.
She's very self-aware of when she needs to lean in and when she needs to give space. Just spending an hour and a half with this woman, I feel like her intentions are
Hmm.
pure. I feel like her desire is genuine, just like mine, and I felt as though we were aligned. And then the people that I saw in her video clips, to me, seemed more like my mom, the accountant, who, you know, at
Yeah,
65
yeah.
years old in a business suit, doesn't have the friend circle to have access to it, would be shunned at work, that isn't going to write a book about it, you know. So I think those places do have a space for the people that don't have easy access to it, or the people that, and maybe another good analogy is like I love working out by myself. I've never had a trainer. I don't want to train it. If I have a question, I'll go online, learn about it, do my thing. There are other people that won't go to the gym unless they
Right,
have
right, right.
somebody there by their side or a group of people, or they want the aerobics class with 20 people there. Um, you know, so I think it's personal. But I very valid point. Are there going to be some pieces of shit scumbag organizations that are just trying to hose rich white people to come down and take their money? Absolutely. And who even knows what they're
Mhm.
giving them? Um, that's where I think, you know, your bullshit filter has to be really tuned in. And you know, unfortunately, it's kind of like if you did the psychedelic work before going to these retreats, you'd have the bullshit filter to process out to be like, no, that lady in Colorado, like I was thinking, you know, if I ever did my next road trip, like would I stop there and spend a weekend at her retreat and do, you know, an eighth of shrooms and have a nice cozy bed right next to the trickling fountain?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. And know that I can come out and get some baked bread and a nice coffee afterwards, and then have somebody with the intelligence and the space for me to help integrate it. Um, yeah, I think that can be enjoyable. Like I said, flying into a foreign country where you're immediately told what cab to take, how to take it, pushed around and shoved like cattle to a place, like
Yeah.
you know, again, but I think it's all with the person that's behind it. And maybe to your point, how a lot of these, hopefully it doesn't get pushed into just the pharmaceutical realm
Mm.
where it's all for
Right, right.
profit, that this isn't about shareholders and that, you know, like, and everybody has their own story, but you know, you hear people that have been in the space to kind of share and give for their entire life and then kind of switch sides and it's like now you're about profit and about, and it's like, what the fuck? Like that shouldn't be it.
Yeah.
But again,
That does
use
concern
use
me
your
that
bullshit
it
filter.
could be utilized more in the pharmaceutical space. I've heard rumors that they're trying to remove the spiritual aspect of some of these substances just so it can be utilized as some sort of pharmaceutical. But I would agree that if you're in a one-on-one situation with a person with great intentions, like the woman in Colorado you're just mentioning, that's a beautiful thing, and I think that should be offered in those therapeutic settings, and I'm all for that. But yeah, the big groups of people and a dirty atmosphere, I'm not so sure about.
You had on Adam Shell,
Yeah.
right? I
Oh yeah, yeah.
believe I'm pronounced his last name. So I just recently befriended him, and actually after our conversation, I plan on having a phone call with him, hearing his story. You know, so I wouldn't put him in the group of this, you know, big
Right, right.
for-profit business that's trying to commercialize shrooms. If you hear his story, it's actually just the opposite. He's offering major discounts to veterans and first responders. He's telling people, hey, ideally you use this for 6 months, and then maybe you don't need it anymore because it adjusts your life. Um, I think again, you know, you combine him with the woman I was just discussing, and I think that yeah, there are some really good individual companies that are trying to do the right thing in spaces to do it. So
Right on.
you know, I just put that out there
Let's
too.
talk about your chapter on transcendental sex, art, and science. I owe a lot of my creative endeavors to my use of psychedelics, especially the first film that I put out and the film that I'm working on now, which is titled Doors of Perception. And it's really kind of
Oh, that's
it's kind of a
fantastic.
branch off of Huxley's work. It's integrating more of the altered state as it relates to near-death experiences, psychedelics, meditation, and alien abduction experiences, because there's a lot of crossovers between all of this. But I find that I have gotten profound ideas and inspiration from my experiences. So tell us a little bit about your chapter.
So this was an attempt to kind of end the book, or towards the end of the book, with more lighter sides of the conversation. So I think, and we've been focusing a lot about the dark, the shadow, the helping with addiction, the overcoming PTSD, the trauma, and that's a major part of it. But then, so once that happens, how do you integrate it back into your life? And this chapter was an attempt to, to say, not necessarily let's have some fun with it, but what would be the real life applications? How can this help in your relationships? How can this help in your creative endeavors? How can this help in your business endeavors? And I think the same concept applies, where if you're approaching an art project or an engineering problem, and you've got your normal five senses, and you've been banging your head against the wall for 2, 3, 5 years, and then now you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, or you do a couple deep DMT sessions, and you get that access to 10, 15, 20, 100 senses. I think just the ability to troubleshoot and look at the problem, or just the creative expression from a different perspective and angle, is only going to give more beautiful art, more breakthroughs in science, more intimate relationships, and particularly with the intimate sexual experiences. And I write in my book about that because, one, I wanted to kind of destigmatize like sex and psychedelics, because I think, especially with shrooms, they certainly have their place. Like low doses of shrooms can prolong sexual experiences for hours, and you can really have a nice integrative session with your partner. But DMT also allows you just this excitement and firework experience that you can't have with just your normal senses, even elevated to this erotic bliss. With DMT, you really can take it to the next level. But I also go about jokingly my first experience, how I thought this was going to be all this amazing thing, and I was going to time orgasm with this breakthrough experience, and like that didn't happen. So with anything, you need intention, you need to go through it in the right way. But now that said, me and my partner have worked it into our sexual life, where not every time, but it really becomes something that we use to understand each other's bodies better, to understand and experience that whole intimacy in just a much more profound way. But then again, thinking about how this can be applied to medicine, to research, to science, where, to, like you're saying, how do we figure out what these next altered states of consciousness bring? Well, I think some of the answers are going to be from studying the altered states, like just getting our minds to work in a different way. And then, you think about like Alex Gray's work and how amazing like those visions are that he puts on paper or on canvas, and then some of his contemporaries with the art that they make, where it's like, I don't want to say that's like the closest thing to these DMT experiences, but like imagine for the normal person that doesn't trip to have that type of ability to see in that type of complexity. Like I said, that's only going to make the seamstress the better seamstress, the guy that flies, ties fly lures better, the guy that carves wood that much better, even to the athlete, to have that much more connection with your body. Like hey, I need more oxygen, or you feel like shit, I got lactic acid buildup right here, or you just have such a connection to yourself, being, source, all of that, and that can only make all of those endeavors that much more profound, enriching, and potentially life-saving. Which maybe as we get into the hour, and like, so what's the big picture of all this shit? And it's like, well, the next step in human evolution, like where do we take this information to not destroy our planet, to leave it for the next generation that's actually a better place? And ultimately I think that's hopefully where this all ends up, where we can stop this self-destructive path.
100%. I was listening to an interview with Graham Hancock, and they were talking about how politicians, it should be mandatory for them to have multiple ayahuasca or DMT sessions before even considering holding an office, because most of the time they probably decide after multiple positions that they don't want to do anything like that. And hopefully those that do would have their shit sorted out so that they wouldn't be psychotic anti-human parasites. So I think that you're exactly right that this could help with the next stage of human evolution if those that feel it could benefit them, more of them should start to explore some of these options, because the therapeutic value is beyond anything that our current medical science can offer, especially as it relates to your mental health. Some of the benefits that not only I've experienced, but many in my life have experienced from psychedelics are so profound, and it can turn a person into a completely different person in the most positive way ever. And I can't say I've ever talked to a person that's had a psychedelic experience that didn't say they had a profound change in perspective in some way or another. I can remember looking back at the first time I tried LSD when I was 16 years old. I was a dumbass kid, and it was all about the partying for me, but the very next day, I saw the world completely differently, and I couldn't go back. So it's a very profound way to just look at things a little differently if you need that.
And differently, with the common words being with more love, with
Yes.
more connection, with more sympathy, with more empathy, but also with more self-awareness, more conviction, more confidence, more. So it's not like you become some sheep and you be, like pussy, like follow the herd. Not at all.
Mm.
Like if anything, I am more like more set, not set in my ways, but just more comfortable in my own skin and my own perspective. But I am so much more open and so much more empathetic. In every interaction I have, I try to think about, walking in that person's shoes. And part of that's from, me living in mansions, having everything, to being homeless, living on the street. So I try not to judge any person. Uh, but I don't think, Hancock saying that shouldn't be some hyperbolic, like far-fetched statement, because if that was a requirement, um, it's not that you would have difference of opinion on gun rights or school or the size of government. It's just you would approach the solution with not being attacking the other person. You wouldn't be a dick. You wouldn't be making fun of people's looks and appearances. You wouldn't try to belittle them. You wouldn't try to hit them where it hurts. You would be like, you know what? That's a really valid point. I think we can build that into mind. Let's build on it. Let's be constructive. Have everybody have their voice and value. And I know with more self-awareness that I have, I appreciate other people's perspective more. I want to know what my mom and dad are thinking. I want to know what my 50-year-old sister's thinking. I want to know what my 15-year-old niece is thinking. It's not, oh, how stupid can you be because you don't think like me, the 44-year-old guy. Like, and there's so many politicians that think that, or that they need to represent this one group with no room for movement. And I think psychedelics, they just they allowed you to stand with your conviction without resorting to negative, belittling tactics that have just no constructive value. And I think that would, of all the people that need that, our policy makers should certainly be.
Mm.
But um,
Right on.
again, I'm hoping it's a generational thing too, because I feel like the younger generations, and I've got two beautiful nieces that I mention often because they're both, I think, going to change the world. And it's like they're not talking about hatred and racist and the calling people belittling names, and it seems like just completely out of their
Mm.
realm. And not to say that there's not some nastiness out there, but it seems to be the teenagers and the 20-year-olds, and even I mean, as I'm turning 44 now, talking to the younger guys in their 30s, it seems like people are becoming aware of the bullshit, not just being force fed what social media or the main media is feeding them, that they're starting to think for themselves. And hopefully that
Mm.
continues, in which case you don't have to worry about some of the shit we're worrying about now.
100%. Yeah, I
With election day coming tomorrow, like whenever this is going to be aired, it's like, oh fuck. Like, tell me, like, and whatever side you're on, and the last thing we're gonna, talk about that would be on this show. But it's like whatever side you're on, if you approach discussing with the other side with grace, with dignity, knowing that they're also a facet of God,
mm.
and then just as an important facet, just an important, like you need to understand that part of the story to make your part of the story more complete. Um, and once again, can you imagine a democracy based on that? Imagine what a neighborhood based on that, a street looked like based on that, a household based on that. But take it fully in. Imagine living your own internal life like
Mm.
that. And I think that's Ultimately that's what psychedelics allowed me to do, and I think is the powerful story to be shared, is that you take control over your own life in the proper ways, and then you can then be the good mom, the good dad, the good whatever you need to
Yeah.
be.
One of the first most profound messages I got through psychedelic experiences is that we are all connected. We're all one. And there's this illusion of separation that's causing our global conflicts since the beginning of our global conflicts. I'd love to get your perspective on the state of the collective right now. You mentioned that you do see people awakening. I see lots of beautiful things happening. I think that overall, the collective consciousness is making a decision what direction they want to head. This is a very pivotal point, I think, in our human evolution. From what I've seen, there are many people that are on the right track, that are waking up, that are becoming aware of things. There's also the reaction from the system and the parasitic ruling class to try and cause more division and panic and fear and confusion. But it seems like, looking back at all the events that happened over the past few years, that there is a greater force at play that is ultimately guiding us to be in a better place overall collectively. And I'd love to get your perspective of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think COVID backfired horribly. I think that opened up a lot of eyes, and whether it just be the trauma induced by your businesses shutting, your family going crazy, like I mean, people, truly people dying too. I'm not saying like people didn't die of sickness, but like I think that was a big shift where people were like taking sovereignty back over their own mind and body, and I don't think I'm hoping that won't happen again because I think people will be wise to it, but. I don't necessarily think there'll be this shift where, like, all of a sudden 90% of the people are good, loving, natured people, and it's, now we can start building this utopia. I do think it is not necessarily there's going to be like this cosmic battle, but I think it's just a matter of having enough data points and people shift to the side to not give a fuck, like to know that yes, you have to live within this framework and you are in this society matrix, whatever the hell you want to live in. But you can still control how you feel. You can still control your emotions. You can, and once you do that, their fear tactics won't work. Their manipulation won't work. It's just like no one will tell me what to do with my mental well-being or body. Like no one, let alone a government official or some religious hierarchy. So I I think it's going to be a gradual shift of people being comfortable standing up like I have, like you have, and like a lot of your guests have, where it's just, hey, I'm not going to do the same routine anymore. That same routine dragged me, drove me into the ground. That same routine made me suicidal. That same routine caused me to lose my wife, my job, whatever you want to say. And once people realize that, well, whose fucking routine is it? Like, make your own. Like, start your own day routine with yoga and meditation and exercise. Start your own, nightly routine of prayers of gratitude and contentment and joy. Like, you don't have to watch people screaming at each other on TV. You don't have to read the newspaper, which is all about nastiness. Like, you can study people like Alan Watts and Carl Jung, and you know, re expand your consciousness in ways that are enriching. And I think the biggest tell, and this is somebody that, so I mentioned some of the shit that I went through, but I was also I'm coming up on 4 years being sober.
Congratulations.
So I haven't, and that's a major factor in my happiness. And the same thing that's going to keep me sober is the same thing that's going to keep me on this path, is that it just feels good. It just feels so much better than the alternative. It's just like you have goosebumps of joy and contentment. You have interactions with everybody you come across. You know you're meeting for a reason. There's not a situation where you're looking for an outcome. You're really just going through the experience. Uh, like the feedback you get to your own body, to not flip out when you used to have road rage. Now you just say, hey, let him pass. Like, it's not, well, now you're some pussy driver. It's like, no, now you're in control of your own body. Now you're not the one who's getting a headache, who's getting heated, who's going to go home and yell at his kids, not go to the gym. Like, it's just, once you take control of your own self and you realize how good that feels, it just becomes natural to keep living like that, but then ideally try to have your inner circle be of those same like-minded energies and then keep expanding that. And I think that's way better than masking it with prescription pills, being hungover, being miserable and angry, being combative and divisive. Like there's just all those other things of love and connection. And that's I ended my book with the chapter love thy neighbor for the
Mm.
same sentiment you're conveying, which is you never know when you're going to need that shoulder to lean on or when you're going to need the love of your neighbor. So always be that person that can be leaned on. Express that love first. And I know that was some of the biggest lessons that I learned where when I was on the road truly walking around with homeless people. I remember I told this one guy, I said, asked him how he was doing, walked by him and I said, "Oh, I love you, brother." And he stopped and he was just like, "No one even looks at me. No one even talks to me." He's like, "No one said hi to me." He goes, "I don't even know how long. No one's even asked how I'm doing." He goes, "Certainly no one's ever said, 'I love you, brother.'" And it was just like, what the fuck? And the only reason I wasn't sitting there like him was because I had rich parents, because I had 70, 80 grand in the bank that I could piss through, that I was gifted money from my grandfather. And it's like, that's the only reason. Not because I'm better than or smarter than and it's just like,
Yeah.
fuck. Like everybody needs to tell, especially if they're down in the dumps. And that doesn't mean people don't have bad or have trauma or that they need to work through some shit. But man, everybody at their core, if they have their plaque removed, if the bullshit removed, the societal stuff that gets put on them can be a true beacon of light.
Mm.
Like I think I am now, but I was that dark, nasty force before, and I can really see the power and beauty of removing that personal plaque and then trying to do that for others because that person could be the next best teacher or coach or who knows, and just whatever. Yeah, man. Love yourself first, and then that naturally comes into loving your neighbor, and then it's just this self, repeating
Yeah, man.
thing of love and connection. Which coming from me, it just sounds so weird for me to end, you know, podcast or my book or even my life on this kind of high note of love and connection when I really wanted. I hated myself. I hated everybody. I wanted to destroy humankind, and I felt as though I had the ability to do so. Where now it's like, no, man, harness that for
Yeah,
good,
man. I love it.
and DMT allowed it. Like so. What the
That's what
fuck?
this is all about. That's what the understanding that I have come to is basically love yourself and love thy neighbor. I always go back to this interview and it's probably fake. It's an alien interrogation interview. It has never been proven or disproved, but it's very interesting in a sense that this extraterrestrial that's supposedly in captivity with some government agency and they're interviewing it, it says that their civilization has become based off of compassion and evidence. And that is the most important things to those civilization. And I think, wow, maybe if we could apply that, we're certainly lacking compassion, but we're definitely capable of it. As far as evidence, we are definitely lacking evidence of many things that explain our reality. And I think that if we could first get past that compassion part and that illusion of separation, then we could start working on that evidence part. But I think you're right, man. Love is the answer, as cheesy as it sounds.
Yeah, no, it is. Uh and to know that there is something else out there. Like and that's also a powerful thing where I know and I'm like I've had a lot of successes in my life. So I'm very I don't want to say I'm cocky or arrogant about my mental abilities, but I'm very comfortable to say like I've got a good noggin on my head. That being said, the shit that I've seen in these states, the beauty, the intricacy, the precision, it's just there's no way that my mind with my 40 years of experience living in New England or like whatever has could possibly create something of that depth and complexity. For me the only definition is that I am just seeing something greater than that I'm looking at something greater than that my body's being a vehicle or a receiver for this information, that I'm certainly not producing it because once again, as much as I can toot my own horn about how great my mind is, there's no fucking way that I could that it's just so profound and so beautiful and so just source God, like and it's not a religious
Right.
word, it's not even a spiritual word, it's just it's a something just way greater. We're something bigger, part of something bigger and greater, and that runs on vibration and information. And love is one of the best fuels of that information.
100%, man. I think that's a great note to end on. Adam, thank you so much. Before we close out, let the audience know how they can pick up your book and find out more about you.
So the book's, corny to say, available where books are, so Amazon's the easiest way to probably get it, but it's on, Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com. If you're in the New England area, Newbury Comics, they've got a bunch of cool stores with some cool swag. It's in several of those stores. I do have an audio version in my voice, so if you either like my New England accent or maybe not, so you can get it in that form too. But my email's booksbyadambutler@gmail.com. If anybody has any questions, if anybody wants a free PDF copy, I've been sending out a lot of copies for people that feel as though they need it, but for whatever reason don't have the funds. So I'd be happy to share copies if somebody needs it. But I'm on Instagram as far as social media. That's probably the best way to get in touch. But I'm available. I'm writing the next book to try to kind of put a bow on some of this nice stuff too. So
excellent.
Hopefully I'll keep doing this round of speaking and hanging out with like-minded people, because it's making this, like, it went from one podcast to 10 to 20 to 2 or 3 people to 5, and it's just like this awesome group of people that I feel like in 5-10 years from now, the movies, the documentaries, the books that are going to come out of this group of hundreds of people, I think is going to lay the foundation for the study for 100 years from now.
Yeah,
so,
man, I love it.
I appreciate what you're doing.
I appreciate what you're
really
doing. This is
doing
great information. Thank you so much, Adam. I'd definitely love to have you back on. After the book comes out, we'll get deeper into everything. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then.